The dim glow of hanging lanterns cast long shadows across the bustling dining room of Han River Grill, a modest Korean fusion spot tucked away in the shadow of Seoul's glittering skyline. Rain pattered against the floor-to-ceiling windows, blurring the neon lights of the city into a hazy watercolor. The air was thick with the sizzle of bulgogi on hot plates and the sharp tang of kimchi fermenting in clay pots behind the counter. Waitress Ji-eun moved like a ghost through the crowd, her black apron stained with soy sauce, her dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail that swung with each hurried step. At 28, she had learned to navigate the chaos of late-night shifts with quiet efficiency, her smile a shield against the weary salarymen and rowdy groups who filled the tables. It was a typical Thursday evening, the kind where the river's damp chill seeped through the cracks in the old building's walls, making the wooden floors creak underfoot. Ji-eun balanced a tray of steaming bibimbap bowls, weaving past a family, celebrating a birthday. She had worn the same simple silver necklace for years, a delicate chain with a pendant shaped like a blooming lotus, a gift from her late mother. It was her talisman, tucked beneath her collar, a whisper of comfort in the grind of double shifts to pay off student loans and support her younger brother. Tonight, though, the restaurant felt heavier, as if the storm outside had stirred something restless in the air. The corner booth was reserved for regulars, the ones who tipped well and spoke in low tones about business that never quite added up. Ji-eun approached with her usual nod, setting down the tray for the elderly woman seated there. Mrs. Kim was a fixture, always alone with her tea, her sharp eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Dressed in a silk hanbok that spoke of old money, she had the bearing of someone who had seen Seoul transform from war-torn streets to towering skyscrapers. "Thank you, dear," Mrs. Kim said, her voice soft but commanding as Ji-eun arranged the dishes. As Ji-eun turned to leave, Mrs. Kim's gnarled hand reached out, fingers brushing the edge of Ji-eun's collar. The touch was light, almost accidental, but it snagged the necklace, pulling the pendant free. It dangled there for a moment, catching the lantern light. Mrs. Kim's eyes widened, her teacup frozen midway to her lips. The old woman's breath hitched, a sound like dry leaves scraping pavement. Where did you get this?" she whispered, her voice cracking for the first time Ji-eun had ever heard. She leaned forward, touching the lotus pendant with trembling fingers, as if it were a ghost made solid. Ji-eun froze, her pulse quickening. The dining room's chatter faded into a distant hum, the clink of chopsticks, the murmur of laughter, the low thrum of K-pop from the speakers. It's just a family heirloom," Ji-eun replied, gently trying to reclaim it. But Mrs. Kim held on, her grip surprisingly firm. This was my daughter's, the lotus. She had it made before she disappeared. 10 years ago. No one outside the family knew about it. The inscription on the back, "Eternal Bloom." It's hers. Ji-eun's stomach twisted. She flipped the pendant over instinctively, the tiny engraved words glinting under the light. Eternal Bloom. Her mother had never spoken of its origins, only that it was a promise kept. "My mother gave it to me. She passed away when I was a teenager. I don't understand." The words tumbled out, laced with confusion. Mrs. Kim's face paled, her eyes searching Ji-eun's features as if piecing together a long-lost puzzle. The rain intensified outside, drumming like urgent fingers on the glass. Before Ji-eun could press further, the door to the restaurant swung open with a gust of wind, admitting a man who seemed to command the very air around him. Tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored black coat that dripped rainwater onto the mat, he scanned the room with the precision of a predator. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones, a jaw set like forged steel, and his dark eyes locked immediately on the corner booth. "Kang Min-ho," the whispers went, though no one said his name aloud in places like this. He was the shadow behind Seoul's underworld, the Korean Mafia boss whose reach extended from the docks of Incheon to the penthouses of Gangnam. His family had built an empire on shipping routes and discreet imports, always one step ahead of the authorities. Mrs. Kim straightened, her composure snapping back like a taut wire. "Min-ho," she said softly, gesturing him over. He approached without a word, his polished shoes silent on the floor. Up close, Ji-eun caught the faint scent of his cologne, sandalwood and smoke, mingling with the restaurant's spices. His gaze flicked to her, lingering on the necklace still clutched in his grandmother's hand. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Shock, perhaps, or recognition. He lost his breath, or so it seemed. His chest rose sharply, then stilled. "Grandmother," he said, his voice low and controlled, like the rumble of a distant engine. "What's this?" He didn't sit, his posture radiating tension, as if the simple act of entering this unassuming grill had already set his instincts on edge. Mrs. Kim released the pendant, letting it fall back against Ji-eun's skin, but her eyes never left the young woman's face. "This girl. She wears Soo-jin's necklace, the one you searched for all those years." Min-ho's expression hardened, a muscle ticking in his jaw. He turned fully to Ji-eun then, his stare piercing, as if weighing her soul against some invisible scale. "Your name!" he demanded, not a question, but a command. Ji-eun swallowed, the weight of the room pressing in, the curious glances from other patrons, the sudden hush in the kitchen, the storm's howl outside. "Ji-eun, Park Ji-eun." He nodded once, slowly, but said nothing more. Instead, he pulled out his phone, thumbing a quick message while his free hand rested lightly on the booth's edge, close enough that Ji-eun could see the faint scar across his knuckles. A remnant of some old fight, she guessed. Mrs. Kim watched him, her lips pressed thin. "Min-ho, she could be—" "Not here," he cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. He glanced at Ji-eun again, this time with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Finish your shift. Someone will be waiting outside when you're done." It wasn't an invitation, it was a summons. As he guided his grandmother toward the exit, the rain swallowing their forms into the night, Ji-eun stood rooted, the necklace suddenly heavy against her chest. What had her mother hidden all those years? And why did the man who ruled Seoul's shadows now see her as part of his world? The rain had turned the streets outside Han River Grill into a slick mosaic of reflected neon, the kind of downpour that soaked through coats and chilled bones in minutes. Ji-eun wiped down the last table, her hands moving on autopilot while her mind raced. The necklace felt like a brand now, warm against her skin from where Mrs. Kim had touched it. Eternal bloom. Her mother's words echoed in her memory. Simple stories of a family keepsake, nothing more. But the old woman's reaction, that raw fracture in her composure, suggested layers Ji-eun had never peeled back. And then there was Min-ho, the man whose name alone hushed conversations. She had seen his type before, sharp suits, sharper eyes, but never one who looked at her like she was a key to a locked vault. The clock ticked past midnight, the restaurant emptying into the storm. Ji-eun shrugged on her raincoat, the thin fabric no match for the wind whipping off the Han River. She stepped out the back door, the alley narrow and shadowed, puddles splashing under her sneakers. The air smelled of wet concrete and distant exhaust, the river's murmur a low undercurrent to the city's pulse. She scanned the darkness, half expecting nothing, half dreading what might wait. A black sedan idled at the curb, its engine a soft purr, headlights cutting through the sheets of rain like search beams, no markings, just tinted windows and plates that gleamed too cleanly. Government issue? No, too discreet for that. The driver's door opened, and a man in a dark suit emerged, unfolding an umbrella with practiced efficiency. He was mid-40s, compact build, face weathered like old leather, with the earpiece coiled against his collar. "Miss Park," he said, voice flat, extending the umbrella toward her. No question in his tone, just assumption. Ji-eun hesitated, rain dripping from her hood. "Who sent you?" "Mr. Kang. He insists on your safety tonight." The man didn't blink, his eyes flicking to the alley's end, where a delivery truck rumbled past, too slow for the weather. Ji-eun's instincts screamed caution. Get in a stranger's car with a Mafia enforcer's name attached? But curiosity gnawed, mingled with the unease of that piercing stare from Min-ho. What if her mother's past, tangled with his family? Refusing might invite worse questions. She nodded once, stepping under the umbrella as he guided her to the passenger side. The door clicked open smoothly, leather seats exhaling a faint scent of polish and cigarette smoke. Inside, the car was a cocoon of quiet luxury. Heated seats warming her chilled legs, the dashboard glowing softly with navigation screens. The driver slid behind the wheel, saying nothing as he pulled into traffic. Ji-eun gripped her bag, watching the side mirror. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "A safe place. Mr. Kang will explain." His reply was clipped, eyes on the road, but she caught the subtle tap of his fingers on the steering wheel, a rhythm like Morse code. Or just nerves. The wipers slashed rhythmically, blurring the skyline as they crossed the river bridge, the water below churning black and restless. Ji-eun's phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her brother, asking if she'd be home soon. She typed a quick lie about overtime, then slipped the device away. No signal bars flickered. The car must have some jammer, common enough in high-end rides to dodge trackers, but it set her teeth on edge. They veered off the main artery into Gangnam's labyrinth of high-rises, the storm-lashed towers looming like sentinels. The driver took a series of turns, doubling back once without explanation, his gaze darting to the rear view. "Routine," he muttered when she noticed. But Ji-eun's pulse quickened. A silver sedan had mirrored their path for 2 blocks, its headlights dimmed. Coincidence, or the first thread of surveillance pulling tight? She thought of Mrs. Kim's trembling fingers, the way Min-ho's breath had caught. Losing composure in a man like that meant something seismic. The car descended into an underground garage, tires humming over polished concrete, the air shifting to cool, sterile dryness scented with oil and faint ozone from security systems. Barriers rose and fell with a beep of RFID tags, guards in nondescript uniforms nodding from posts. No visible guns, but the bulges under jackets spoke volumes. The driver parked near a private elevator, its doors seamless chrome. "Wait here," he said, stepping out to scan a badge. As the doors parted, he gestured her inside. "Penthouse level, Mr. Kang is expecting you." Ji-eun entered alone, the ascent smooth and silent, her reflection distorted in the mirrored walls. The necklace chain tickled her collarbone, a reminder. What secrets had her mother buried? The doors opened to a foyer of marble and muted lighting, the hum of a distant air purifier, the only sound. Min-ho stood at the far end, silhouetted against floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the storm-swept city. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle, a glass of whiskey in hand. No tie, no armor, just raw authority in the set of his shoulders. "You came," he said, turning as she approached, his voice carrying that same controlled rumble. Up close, without the restaurant's chaos, his presence was overwhelming, like standing too near a gathering storm. The room smelled of aged wood and rain-dampened leather from the furniture, a low fire crackling in a modern hearth despite the humidity outside. "I wasn't given much choice," Ji-eun replied, chin lifting. She wouldn't cower, not yet. "Your grandmother recognized my necklace, said it was her daughter's, my mother's." Min-ho set the glass down on a side table, the clink echoing. He stepped closer, not invading, but close enough she could see the faint lines of fatigue around his eyes. marks of a man who slept with one ear open. "Sujin," he said softly, the name heavy. "She vanished 10 years ago, pregnant. We searched everywhere, from the docks to the border towns. No trace." His gaze dropped to the pendant, then back to her face, searching for echoes. The lotus was custom, engraved in a workshop in Busan. Only family knew. Ji-Yun's breath caught. Pregnant? Her mother had never mentioned soul ties, only a vague past in the countryside. "She raised me alone in Incheon. Died in a car accident when I was 18. If she was your aunt, why hide it?" Protection. Minho's jaw tightened, a shadow crossing his features. Our world. Shipping. Imports. It's not clean. Rivals, police, old grudges. Sujin wanted out, took the necklace as a symbol. If she had a child... He trailed off, the implication hanging like smoke. Ji-Yun's mind reeled. Could she be tied to this empire, blood making her a target? A soft chime from his phone broke the tension. He glanced at it, expression darkening. "We need to talk more, but not here." He moved to a side door, revealing a hallway lined with what looked like reinforced panels, safe room adjacent. "Stay tonight. It's not safe until we confirm." Ji-Yun hesitated. The elevators hum, a distant temptation. But outside in the rain, who watched? And if her blood linked her to him, walking away might unravel everything. She nodded, stepping forward as he led the way. In the corridor, neither noticed the faint red blink of a hidden camera, its feed streaming to an unseen rival's screen. Who had planted it there? And what debt from the past was it about to collect? The safe room's door sealed behind them with a soft, pneumatic hiss, the sound muffled by thick, soundproofed walls lined in dark walnut panels that absorbed the city's distant roar. Ji-Yun's sneakers sank into the plush carpet, a stark contrast to the penthouse's marble coolness, and the air carried a faint metallic tang from hidden ventilation systems cycling filtered oxygen. Dim LED strips glowed along the baseboards, casting a sterile blue hue over recessed shelves stocked with bottled water, medical kits, and encrypted laptops, preparations for sieges that felt all too real now. Minho flicked a switch, and a wall screen flickered to life, displaying feeds from external cameras, the garage below empty save for a lone security patrol, the storm-lashed streets slick and unpeopled. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a leather armchair facing a low table cluttered with files and a half-empty decanter of soju. His movements were deliberate, unhurried, but Ji-Yun caught the subtle flex of his hand as he poured 2 glasses, the scar on his knuckles whitening under the pressure. She perched on the edge of the seat, the necklace's chain cool against her damp collar, a tether to the unraveling truth. "This isn't a prison," he added, sliding a glass toward her, "but leaving now. It's not wise. Not until we piece this together." Ji-Yun took the glass but didn't drink, her fingers tracing the rim as rain drummed faintly against the reinforced windows high above. The room felt like a vault, secure yet claustrophobic, the hum of a backup generator vibrating through the floor like a heartbeat. "Peace what? My mother never mentioned you or this." She met his gaze, dark eyes mirroring the storm outside, intense, unyielding. Sujin Park, that's what she called herself after she left. No family, no ties, just us, scraping by in Incheon. If she was your aunt, why the secrecy? And why drag me into it now? Minho leaned against the table, his shirt sleeves riding up to reveal the edge of a tattoo. A stylized crane, inked in black, symbol of longevity in their world, but twisted with thorns. Family legacy, she realized. The kind that bound and scarred. She was more than an aunt. Sujin was the heart of us. My father's sister, the one who kept the books clean, mediated the deals. Our code, no innocence touched, debts settled with honor. But 10 years ago, rivals from Busan, the Lee Syndicate, pushed hard on our shipping lanes. Smuggling routes through Incheon docks, counterfeit goods masked as electronics. She got wind of a double cross, an inside man selling manifests to the police. He paused, swirling his soju, the liquid catching the light like liquid amber. Ji-eun's mind flashed to her childhood, late nights when her mother pored over ledgers by lamplight, muttering about old promises. Never specifics, just warnings to stay invisible. She confronted him, Min-ho continued, voice dropping to a gravel edge. A mid-level enforcer thought he could skim without consequence. Soo-jin threatened to expose him. Our way, no blood if avoidable. But he vanished her instead. Car accident, they said. Body never recovered fully, just enough to close the case. We tore the city apart, checked CCTV angles at the crash site, tailed his associates, even hit the Lee's warehouses. Nothing stuck. Ji-eun's throat tightened, the soju's burn tempting now. She sipped, the rice spirit sharp on her tongue, warming the chill that had settled in her bones. The necklace. She said it was from a lover, a token before I was born. Eternal bloom, her words for starting over. But doubt crept in, her mother's guarded smiles, the burner phone she once found hidden in a drawer, its logs wiped clean. If she was pregnant with me, was the enforcer? No. Min-ho's denial was swift, his eyes narrowing as if the idea offended his code. Soo-jin wouldn't. Our bloodline traces clean. DNA from the old family vault in Jeju confirms it. But if you're hers, that makes you Kim's by right, heir to shares in the legit fronts, restaurants, import firms, and a target. He straightened, pulling a slim folder from the table, flipping it open to grainy photos. Her mother, younger, laughing in a hanbok at what looked like a dockside warehouse, crates stamped with Kang imports. Beside it, a faded shipping manifest, yellowed edges curling, dates from a decade ago, entries for personal effects routed to Incheon, signed S. Park. Ji-eun leaned in, heart pounding against her ribs. The manifest listed a vehicle plate, her mother's old sedan, the one wrecked in the accident. But a discrepancy jumped out. The timestamp overlapped with a guard rotation log, a 2-hour gap where no patrol was logged. Human error or deliberate blind spot. This, she was running cargo, for you? Legit at first. Textiles, spices. But the gap, that's new. Min-ho's brow furrowed, tracing the line with his finger. He tapped his earpiece, murmuring into it. Jay, pull the old CCTV from Incheon docks, timestamp 14:32, October 12th, cross-reference the plate. A pause, then his jaw set. Compromised? How? He disconnected, the room's air thickening with unspoken threat. Ji-eun's skin prickled. The safe room's security felt paper-thin now. Before she could respond, a low chime echoed, the wall screen shifting to an alert. Motion in the garage sublevel. The feed showed the silver sedan from earlier, idling near the barrier, its driver obscured by rain-smeared glass. No plates visible, just a shadow leaning out, tossing something, a burner phone. It skittered across the concrete. Screen lighting up briefly before the car peeled away into the storm. Min-ho's hand went to a concealed panel, arming a silent alarm. "Stay here," he ordered. But his tone held a plea beneath the command, protection clashing with her fire. Ji-eun stood, defiance sparking. "I'm not hiding while you play guardian. If this is my mother's mess, I deserve answers." The push-pull ignited, her autonomy aflame against his possessive shield. He hesitated, eyes locking with hers, the air electric between them. Loyalty versus fear, the code bending under personal stakes. As he nodded, leading her back to the hallway, the retrieved burner buzzed once on the feed, a single message flashing, "The Bloom returns debt calls." Min-ho's breath caught again, sharper this time. Who had sent it? And what old grudge from the docks was blooming into something deadly? If you're enjoying this story so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The elevator descended with a whisper, its mirrored walls reflecting Minho's taut profile and Ji-Yun's determined stance side by side. The air grew cooler, laced with the sharp bite of motor oil and rubber as they dropped toward the garage sublevel. Rain echoed faintly through the concrete vents, a relentless patter that mirrored the quickening thud of her heart. Minho's hand hovered near his belt, where the outline of a concealed holster pressed against his shirt. No dramatic draw, just readiness born of years navigating shadows. Ji-Yun clutched her bag tighter, the necklace's pendant a subtle weight, its inscription now a cipher for buried debts. "Doors open in 10, he murmured into his earpiece, voice low enough that only she caught the edge of strain. "Jay, seal the secondary exit, no tails." The response crackled softly, affirmative, laced with static from the storm. Ji-Yun glanced at him, the blue emergency lights casting hollows under his eyes. Possessiveness radiated from him like heat from an engine block. But she saw the crack, not just duty to family code, but a personal fracture, as if her existence rewrote his losses. The doors parted to the garage's cavernous expanse, sodium lamps buzzing overhead, painting the wet floor in oily yellows. Puddles gleamed like shattered glass, and the air hummed with the low growl of idling generators. The silver sedan was gone, vanished into the downpour, but the burner phone lay abandoned near the barrier arm. A cheap black model, screen cracked from the toss, its plastic shell slick with rain. 2 guards flanked it, their rain gear dripping, faces impassive under hooded caps. One nodded to Minho, holding up a gloved hand. "Clear, sir. No prints yet, but the message pinged from a relay in Mapogu. Burner network, untraceable without pulling favors." Minho crossed the space in long strides, boots splashing faintly, Ji-Yun matching him despite the chill seeping through her sneakers. She knelt beside the device as he retrieved it with a pen. Careful not to smudge evidence, the screen glowed dimly. The bloom returns, debt calls. No sender, no timestamp beyond the toss. Simple tech, the kind any mid-level fixer could snag from a street vendor in Itaewon. But the words twisted in her gut, echoing her mother's talisman. Eternal bloom, a debt from 10 years past, resurfacing like flotsam from the Han. "Mapo-gu," Minho said, pocketing the phone after snapping photos with his own device. His breath was steady now, but his free hand clenched, knuckles paling around the scar. "Lee territory. They run the underground clubs there, launder through karaoke bars, if this is them circling back." He trailed off, eyes scanning the shadows, where support columns loomed like silent watchers. Ji-Yun stood, wiping damp hands on her jeans, the garage's echo amplifying her voice. "Circling for what? If my mother, Su Jin, exposed their man, why wait a decade? And why me?" He turned to her, close enough that she caught the faint spice of his cologne cutting through the petroleum haze. "Because you're proof, alive wearing the lotus. The Lees lost face when she vanished, our code held. No retaliation bloodbath, but grudges fester. They might think you hold ledgers, codes to old roots, or worse, that you're leverage to pull me off balance." His gaze softened fractionally, a rare vulnerability flickering. "I won't let that happen, not after losing her." Ji-Yun pulled back, the push of his protectiveness clashing with her need to stand firm. "I'm not some fragile heir to hide away. If this debt's tied to my blood, I need to know how deep it goes, not just your version." Autonomy burned in her words, a spark against his shadowed empire. He nodded, jaw tight, the conflict etching lines across his brow. Loyalty to his code demanded he shield her, but her fire demanded truth, testing the fragile bridge between them. A guard approached, holding a tablet with grainy footage pulled from the garage cams. "Sir, the silver sedan's plates, faked, but the undercarriage matches a rental from a Yongsan chop shop. Driver's face blurred by rain, but he ditched the phone deliberate. Behavioral tell. paused at the barrier like he was waiting for confirmation. The screen looped the clip. The car idling, a gloved arm extending. The toss precise. No haste, just calculation. Human error minimized. But the pause hinted at nerves, perhaps a lookout sinking with a team. Minho swiped through, zooming on the timestamp. Cross it with the inch and CCTV J's pulling. The manifest gap. 2 hours unpatrolled. If the enforcer tampered with rotations, this could be his remnant, or a Lee plant testing waters. He pocketed the tablet, signaling the guards. Double the perimeter, no one in or out without biometrics. To Ji-Yun, he added, quieter, "We drive to the docks. Old family safe house there, off-grid, no relays for trackers. I'll show you the manifests myself." The idea twisted her stomach, deeper into his world, warehouses and tunnels where deals turned deadly. But curiosity outweighed fear. Her mother's secrets deserved unearthing, even if it meant navigating his possessive orbit. They moved to a armored SUV, black and unassuming, engine rumbling to life with a throaty purr. Rain lashed the windshield as they ascended the ramp, wipers slashing furiously. Ji-Yun watched the side mirror, the garage shrinking behind sodium-lit gates. No tails visible, but the storm cloaked too much. Distant headlights could be anything. The drive wound through Seoul's underbelly, bridges arching over the swollen Han, its waters churning with debris under sodium glows. Thunder rumbled, vibrating the leather seats, and the air inside thickened with unspoken tension. Min-ho drove, one hand on the wheel, the other tapping a rhythm. Code? Or just the storm's echo? "Soo-jin taught me the docks," he said after a stretch of silence, voice cutting the hum of tires on wet asphalt. Navigation by stars when tech failed. She believed in anchors, family, code. Never thought I'd find one lost at sea. Ji-Yun glanced at him, the dashboard lights etching his profile in blues and greens. Anchors can drag you under too. My mother built a life without this, without you. What if that's the debt? Her freedom costing yours? The words hung, probing his ethics against her independence, the pull of trust warring with suspicion. He didn't answer immediately, turning onto a service road flanked by chain link and fog-shrouded cranes. The docks emerged like skeletal giants, shipping containers stacked in rusty towers, the river's brine mingling with diesel fumes. A security gate loomed, guard nodding them through after a retinal scan. Tech grounded in biometrics, no sci-fi flair. The safe house squatted at the edge, a converted foreman's office, weathered brick with reinforced shutters, generators humming distantly against blackout risks. Inside, the space was Spartan, metal desks piled with ledgers, walls papered in faded manifests, the air stale with salt and ink. A single bulb swung overhead, casting swinging shadows as Minho unlocked a floor safe, pulling a thick binder. "October 12th, he said, flipping pages yellowed by time. Entries detailed shipments, electronics crates masking counterfeits, routes snaking from Busan. The gap glared, 14:32 to 16:45, no log. Beside it, a scribbled note in her mother's hand. Enforcer shift swap. Lee Mark, Bloom, safe. Ji-Yun traced the ink, pulse racing. She knew, marked it before vanishing. But a discrepancy nagged. The plate number matched her mother's car, yet a cross-reference to guard rotations showed an extra signature, illegible. But the slant matched samples from Lee syndicate forgeries, subtle tells in pressure strokes. Minho's phone buzzed. Jay's voice urgent. CCTV from Incheon, tampered feed, but audio caught a call. Enforcer's voice. The girl lives, send the Bloom signal. The line crackled, then cut, jammed. Outside, thunder boomed, but a sharper crack followed. Not lightning, but muffled shots echoing from the riverbank. Lights flickered, the safe house plunging into partial dark as a staged blackout hit. Minho drew his sidearm, guiding Ji-eun behind the desk, his body a shield. "Stay low!" Infiltration, rivals cutting power lines, using the storm for cover. The door rattled, a shadow slipping through the unsecured side vent. Who had breached the perimeter, and what price would they extract for the returning bloom? The safe-house's bulb sputtered once, then died, plunging the room into a void broken only by the storm's fury, rattling the shutters like frantic fists. Ji-eun's breath caught in her throat, the air thick with the metallic bite of ozone from the tripped breakers and the briny tang of the river seeping through cracks in the walls. Shadows twisted across the ledgers scattered on the desk, the single beam from Minho's tactical flashlight slicing through the dark like a knife. He crouched low, his body a solid barrier between her and the door, the faint outline of his sidearm steady in his grip. The crack of those shots lingered in her ears, not wild gunfire, but suppressed pops, deliberate like muffled coughs in the night. "Backup's jammed," Minho whispered, his voice a gravel thread against the thunder's roll. He thumbed his earpiece, static hissing back, no response from Jay or the perimeter guards. The river's churn outside swelled, waves slapping the pilings with wet smacks, masking subtler sounds. The scrape of boots on gravel, perhaps, or the click of a lockpick testing the side vent. Ji-eun's pulse hammered, her fingers digging into the desk's edge, splintered wood biting her palms. Autonomy screamed at her to move, to grab something, a ledger's heavy spine as a club, but his nearness pinned her, that possessive shield both cage and anchor. "We can't stay exposed," she hissed back, her voice edged with the fear she refused to let crack. "If they're cutting lines, they're inside the wire." He nodded. The flashlight's beam darting to the vent, a rusted grate low on the wall, now ajar, hinges groaning faintly as a gloved hand probed through. No time for debate. Minho lunged, slamming the grate shut with his boot, the intruder's fingers withdrawing in a yelp cut short by the storm. But the damage was done. A shadow detached from the wall, materializing near the floor safe. Rain-slicked coat dripping onto the concrete. The figure was compact, hooded, face obscured by a balaclava, but the glint of a knife caught the light. Short blade, practical for close work, not showy theater. Minho fired once, the suppressed shot a sharp puff that echoed dully, the bullet grazing the intruder's shoulder and sending him scrambling behind a stack of crates. Wood splintered as the figure returned fire blindly, bullets whining off metal shelves, one embedding in the desk, inches from Ji-eun's knee. She flinched, the acrid whiff of gunpowder mingling with diesel fumes from the idling generators outside. Cut off now, leaving the air stale and suffocating. "Down the hall, service tunnel," Minho ordered, yanking her toward a concealed panel behind the manifests. His free hand gripped her arm, firm but not bruising, the touch a clash of his code's protection against her instinct to pull away. Loyalty bound him to shield the bloom, but her ethics rebelled at being maneuvered like cargo. The panel swung open on silent hinges, revealing a narrow corridor of exposed brick and flickering emergency strips, backup power kicking in sporadically, casting their shadows long and warped. They moved fast, Ji-eun's sneakers silent on the damp floor, the tunnel's chill raising gooseflesh under her damp clothes. Distant shouts filtered through, guards engaging, the pop-pop of exchanges near the gate, but the storm swallowed details, turning the docks into a labyrinth of hazards. Water pooled ankle-deep from a leaking pipe, cold and oily, splashing with each step. Minho swept the beam ahead, revealing rusted conduits snaking the walls, their hum silenced by the sabotage. Deliberate cuts, she guessed, using bolt cutters from a maintenance shed. Simple logistics, no high-tech wizardry. Halfway down he paused at a junction, pulling a burner phone from his pocket, the one from the garage, its screen still lit with that cryptic message. "Debt calls," he muttered, thumbing it on speaker. A faint signal bar flickered. He dialed a secure line to the penthouse. Static, then Mrs. Kim's voice, frail but steel-edged. Minho. The feeds. Someone's looping the garage cams. Old footage from the Enforcer's era. Her words hit like a gut punch, the grandmother's sharp mind piecing clues from her vantage. Ji-eun leaned in, the phone's glow illuminating Minho's tense jaw. The necklace inscription, Eternal Bloom. Sujin etched it herself, but the metal. It's from a Busan supplier the Lees control. They marked it years ago, embedded a tracker chip, dormant until activated. Ji-eun's hand flew to her throat, the pendant suddenly burning against her skin. A tracker. Credible, micro RFID, the kind custom scanners missed in personal effects, powered by kinetic energy from movement. Her shifts at the restaurant, the walk home, anyone with the code could ping it. They've been watching me, she breathed, horror twisting with betrayal. Her mother's gift, a beacon for old enemies. Minho's eyes darkened, possessiveness flaring as he scanned her neckline. We'll remove it, but first... A grate clanged behind them, the intruder's pursuit closing, footsteps splashing through the water. The tunnel forked, left to the river exit exposed to the storm, right to a warehouse sublevel, rival territory if the Lees had infiltrated. Minho chose right, pulling her along, the air growing heavier with the scent of stacked pallets and mouldering cardboard. Partial discovery sank in, the threat organized, not random, the silver sedan a scout, the blackout a diversion, the burner a taunt. Human error in the old rotations had let the Enforcer slip away, but now his network resurfaced, using the necklace as bait to draw out the Kangs. They burst into the warehouse, vast and echoing, containers looming like tombstones under sodium lights that buzzed erratically, power flickering back but spotty, casting strobe-like shadows. Forklifts stood idle, their diesel tanks a potential fire hazard if sparks hit. The intruder emerged from a side door, knife in one hand, pistol in the other, blood staining his sleeve from the graze. No monologue, just a lunge, professional, aiming to disarm and extract. Minho shoved Ji-eun behind a crate, firing twice. The figure dodged, bullet ricocheting off metal with a ping that set her ears ringing. She scanned the space, spotting a control panel on the wall. Guard rotation logs wired in, a digital display glitching from the outage. A clue. Recent access code entry. Time stamped minutes ago from an internal badge. Betrayal. One of their own. The push-pull intensified. Minho's back to her, shielding, but she couldn't hide. Grabbing a loose chain from the floor, heavy, rusted, she swung it low as the intruder closed, wrapping his ankle and yanking. He stumbled, Minho tackling him down in a tangle of limbs and grunts, the knife skittering away. Panting, Minho zip-tied the man's wrists with a spare from his belt, ripping off the balaclava to reveal a scarred face, mid-30s, eyes burning with grudge. "Lee sent you," Minho growled, pressing a knee to his chest. The captive spat, rain mixing with blood. "The Blumos, Enforcer's daughter lives. Pay the debt or we take the air. No names, but the behavioral tell." A tattoo peeking from his collar. Thorn crane twisted. Stolen Kang mark, a turncoat's brand. Ji-eun knelt, heart racing, as Minho secured him for Jay's team. Victory edged closer, but at cost. The intruder's words confirmed her lineage, exposure rippling through the syndicates. Trust teetered, his code vowing protection, her independence demanding she claim her role, not as possession, but partner. Outside, sirens wailed faintly, police drawn by the shots, complicating extraction. As they dragged him toward the convoy lights, piercing the storm, the necklace's tracker beeped once, activated fully now, pinging a response. Who else had the signal, and how deep did the turncoat network run in their own ranks? The warehouse's sodium lights flickered back to full strength with a reluctant hum, casting harsh pools of yellow across the concrete floor, slick with rainwater and spilled oil. The air hung heavy, laced with the sharp tang of cordite from the exchanged shots and the underlying rot of the Han River's mud, carried in on the intruder's soaked boots. Ji-eun's arms ached from the swing of the chain. Her palms raw where the rust had bitten in, but adrenaline sharpened her senses, the distant wail of sirens growing louder, cutting through the storm's diminishing rumble like a siren's call to chaos. Min-ho hauled the captive to his feet, the zip ties creaking against the man's wrists, his scarred face twisted in defiance under the glare. The thorned crane tattoo gleamed wetly on his neck, a mocking echo of the Kang legacy, stolen and perverted. "Talk," Min-ho demanded, his voice a low blade, shoving the man against a stack of pallets that groaned under the pressure. The intruder's breath came in ragged bursts, blood seeping through his sleeve where the graze had torn fabric, but his eyes, cold, calculating, betrayed no fear, only the satisfaction of a job half done. Ji-eun stepped closer, the necklace's pendant now a pulsing weight against her chest, its faint beep a metronome in the tension. Activated tracker. Simple RFID tech, the kind embedded in luxury watches or high-end key fobs, dormant until a signal woke it. Her mother's gift had been a leash all along, pinging locations to anyone with the frequency code, likely pulled from old Busan supplier records. The captive smirked, teeth flashing white against the blood on his lip. "Debt's due, Kang. The enforcer skimmed for us. Your aunt's ledgers proved it. She marked him, but we marked her back. The girl's the key. DNA ties her to the old roots, the ones you buried." His words slithered out, laced with the Mapo-gu accent, thick as the fog rolling off the docks. No graphic threats, just logistics, access to shipping manifests, discreet ledgers from a decade ago that could unravel Kang fronts if leaked to prosecutors. Ji-eun's stomach knotted. Her independence clashed against this revelation, her life retroactively claimed by blood she hadn't chosen. Min-ho's grip tightened, knuckles whitening, but his code held. No snap of violence, just pressure. "Who runs the network now? The Lees cut you loose years ago." A muffled thud echoed from the tunnel entrance. Jay's team arriving, boots splashing through the water, their radios crackling with terse updates. "Perimeter secure. 2 more shadows down by the gate. Non-lethal takedowns." The lead guard, a burly figure with a shaved head and earpiece, nodded to Min-ho, cuffing the captive's ankles for transport. Chop Shop Rental traced to a burner LLC in Yongsan. Driver's a ghost, but his phone logs hit a relay in the club's Lee money laundering hub. Human error in the old enforcer's play. He'd used a personal device once, a call logged in a forgotten police archive, now resurfaced via a discreet favor from a Kang-planted mole in the force. Ji-eun watched as they loaded the man into the armored SUV's rear, the doors sealing with a solid thunk. The convoy formed quickly, 2 unmarked vans flanking the lead vehicle, headlights piercing the clearing night like wary eyes. She slid into the passenger seat beside Min-ho, the leather still warm from the engines idling, the dashboard screens flickering with GPS overlays. Alternate routes plotted to evade checkpoints, accounting for the storm-flooded underpasses. Sirens wailed closer now, blue lights dancing on the warehouse walls, but the dock's private security had already greased palms. Cops would find a malfunctioning generator story, no deeper probe without warrants. As they pulled out, tires humming over gravel that gave way to slick asphalt, Min-ho's hand brushed hers on the gear shift, a fleeting touch, possessive yet tentative, testing the waters of their budding alliance. "The tracker," he said, voice steady over the wiper's rhythm. "We neutralize it at the penthouse. Surgical clip. Quick, no scars." His eyes flicked to her, dark with the weight of legacy. His vow to protect innocence, now extended to her as family, clashing with her fierce autonomy. Ji-eun nodded, but pulled her hand away, staring at the river's black ribbon unfurling beside them. "And after, you can't just claim me like one of your shipments. My mother's choice was freedom. Mine has to be too." The words hung, the push-pull electric in the confined space, rain pattering on the roof like impatient fingers. Minho's jaw set, the scar on his knuckles catching the passing streetlights. Freedom in our world costs. The Lees won't stop at taunts. They'll hit the legit businesses, pressure points like the grill. But together, he trailed off, the implication a bridge, trust forged in fire, suspicion yielding to shared stakes. Ambition versus prudence warred in his silence. He wanted her safe, sequestered, but her ethics demanded partnership, not possession. The convoy snaked through Incheon's industrial sprawl, neon signs from fish markets blurring past, the air inside shifting to the faint salt of the sea. Jay's voice crackled over the intercom. "Incoming intercept. False alarm. But check the rear. Silver sedans ghosted, but a drone pinged the necklace 5 minutes back. Low-res, hobby model, but eyes in the sky." Surveillance tech grounded in reality. Cheap quadcopters from online shops, fitted with signal sniffers, hovering at legal altitudes to dodge radar. Ji-yoon's skin crawled. The Bloom's return had painted a target. Her every move logged in some rival's discreet ledger. They reached the penthouse garage without incident, barriers rising like obedient jaws, but unease lingered. The intruder's parting glare, the tracker's insistent beep, now silenced by a manual jammer in Minho's pocket. Inside the elevator, ascending smoothly, Mrs. Kim waited in the foyer, her handbag impeccable despite the late hour. A velvet box in her hands. "The Clippers," she said softly, eyes on Ji-yoon's necklace. No tremor now, just resolve. As Minho worked the delicate tool, snip, a faint spark, the chip inert, Ji-yoon caught her reflection. Stronger, etched by the night's trials. But as the family gathered in the safe room, poring over the captured phone's decrypted logs, entries linking the enforcer to a hidden safe deposit in Gangnam, coordinates for buried manifests, the screen glitched. A new message bloomed. Heir claimed. Next debt. The grandmother's old vow. Minho's breath hitched, face paling. What buried promise from Mrs. Kim's past had the turncoats unearthed? And how would it fracture their fragile found family? If this tale already has you hooked, hit the like button. It helps us bring more hidden stories to light. The safe room's wall screen cast a cold, flickering glow across the gathered faces, turning Mrs. Kim's lined features into a map of shadows and resolve. The air hummed with the low whir of the ventilation system, pulling in filtered drafts that carried the faint, sterile scent of the penthouse's upper floors, polished marble and lingering rain. Ji-eun sat at the edge of the leather sofa, her fingers absently tracing the now silent necklace chain, the pendant's weight lighter without the tracker's insidious pulse. Minho paced the length of the room, his polished shoes silent on the thick carpet, the scar on his knuckles catching the light with each clench. Jay hovered near the door, tablet in hand, his compact frame tense as he cross-referenced the decrypted logs against a digital archive of old family vows. Discreet entries in encrypted ledgers, vows that bound the Kangs tighter than blood. Mrs. Kim lowered herself into an armchair with deliberate grace, her handbag whispering against the fabric. The velvet box from earlier lay open on the table, surgical clippers discarded beside a scattering of photos. Faded images of a younger Soo-jin at a riverside negotiation, crates of spices stacked behind her, and one of Mrs. Kim herself, stern-faced in a pre-war handbag, signing a document under the dim light of a dockside lantern. "It's from before you were born, Minho," she said, her voice steady but threaded with the weight of decades. "The vow to the Han family, rivals before the Lees rose. We shared roots in the 70s, splitting imports from Japan, silks, electronics prototypes, but a storm sank one of their ships off Incheon. Cargo lost, 20 men with it. I promised restitution, a share of our manifests, access to safe houses, no retaliation for life." Minho stopped pacing, his dark eyes locking on her. The room's air thickened, the generator's distant thrum underscoring the silence. "You never mentioned it. Our code. No debts unpaid, but that was generations ago. Why resurface now? His tone held accusation laced with protectiveness, the push of legacy clashing against the fear of exposure. Ji-Yun watched the exchange, her own autonomy stirring. This wasn't just his family unraveling, it was hers, pieced from hidden shards. The turncoat's message burned in her mind. Next debt, the grandmother's old vow. They'd unearthed it from the buried safe deposit, no doubt. Coordinates Jay had confirmed led to a Gangnam vault, cracked open by a forged keycard. Human error in outdated security rotations allowing the breach. Jay cleared his throat, swiping the tablet screen. The logs tie it clean. Enforcers Network fed the info to the Lees. Old Han remnants embedded there, grudge holders nursing the loss. They want the manifests revived, routes for modern runs, counterfeits through luxury goods. The grandmother's vow gives them leverage. Claim it's unpaid, drag the Kangs into court or worse, syndicate arbitration. His words painted the logistics. No magic, just scanned documents from yellowed paper, digitized on a thumb drive left in the vault. Behavioral tells in the handwriting matching Han-era forgers. Outside, the storm had eased to a drizzle, but the city's sodium lights filtered through the reinforced windows, casting watery reflections on the walls like watchful eyes. Ji-Yun leaned forward, the sofa creaking softly. And me? The heir claimed? They think I hold the key to enforcing it? My mother's ledgers? Her voice cut sharp, independence flaring against Minho's instinctive step toward her, as if to shield the question itself. He hesitated, the conflict etching his brow. His code demanded he contain the threat, possess the solution, but her ethics refused to be sidelined. Mrs. Kim met her gaze, eyes softening with a grandmother's rare warmth. Su-Jin took copies when she left. Protected you both. If the Lees activate this, it's not just roots, it's exposure. Police raids on the docks, frozen assets. We settle the debt our way, negotiate at neutral ground, a warehouse in Mapo-gu, no blood. Minho's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking. Neutral? After the safe house breach? They're staging this, blackout diversions, drone pings, to force our hand. He pulled out his phone, thumbing a secure line to the perimeter team. Double guards on the river approach. Check for tampered manifests in the sub-level archive. Any Han stamps. The response crackled, affirmative, but a pause. Sir, access code logged an hour ago. Internal badge. Yours, but timestamp off by 2 minutes. Betrayal's thread pulled taut. A mole in their ranks, mimicking biometrics with a cloned fob. Common tech from black market scanners. Tension coiled like the river's current outside. The room's air growing stale as they plotted. Ji-Yun stood, pacing now herself, the carpet muffling her steps. Curiosity warred with prudence. Dive into the negotiation, uncover the full ledger, or pull back, let Minho's world swallow the risk. I go with you, she said, stopping before him, chin lifted. If it's my blood tying this vow, my mother's shadow, I face it, not as cargo. His eyes searched hers, possessiveness yielding to a flicker of respect, the bond testing under pressure. Together, then. But if it turns... A sharp chime cut him off, the wall screen alerting to motion in the garage. Feeds showed 2 black vans idling at the barrier, no plates, drivers obscured by tinted glass. Not theirs. The convoy was still en route from the docks. Jay zoomed in, a subtle tell. One van's exhaust plume irregular, modified engine perhaps for evasion. False escort, he muttered. Lure us out. Minho armed the lockdown, panels sealing with hydraulic size, but the vans breached anyway. Guard rotation compromised, a false alarm distracting the post. Infiltration swift, figures in rain gear spilling out, bolt cutters snapping chains. The environment turning hazardous as they jammed the exits with a parked truck, tires screeching on wet concrete. Inside the penthouse, lights flickered. A targeted surge, power rerouted through the building's grid, blacking out the upper floors. Emergency strips glowed red, the air shifting to cool drafts from failing vents. Mrs. Kim gripped the armchair, her vow's ghost rising. They want the negotiation now. Force it here. Footsteps echoed faintly through the vents, muffled thuds climbing service stairs. Minho drew his sidearm, guiding Ji-Yun and his grandmother toward the inner safe core. A reinforced vault within the room, stocked for sieges, but she resisted, grabbing a heavy flashlight from the shelf, its beam steady in her hand. We don't hide. Confront them, extract the truth on our terms. The door rattled, a muffled voice calling through, "Kang, the Bloom's debt calls. Grandmother's vow, pay in manifests or we take the air." No shots yet, just pressure, rivals using the storm's remnants for cover. Wet boots slipping on stairs, a behavioral slip in the accent, Han old-timers mixed with Lee muscle. Minho nodded to Jay, who triggered a silent counter. Gas canisters in the hall, non-lethal fog to disorient, buying time for extraction via the rooftop helipad. But as the fog hissed, a grate popped in the ceiling, compromised vent, a turncoat's access code granting entry. Ji-Eun swung the flashlight as a figure dropped, cracking against his wrist. He yelped, dropping a burner phone that skittered across the floor. Minho tackled him, the scuffle a blur of grunts and thuds, loyalty fracturing as the man spat. "The vow's ledger, your own blood sold it. Check the grandmother's handbook lining." Mrs. Kim paled, fingers trembling as she reached into her sleeve, pulling a folded paper. Yellowed, stamped with hand seals, hidden there for years. Partial discovery. The vow detailed not just roots, but a secret alliance clause, binding Kangs to share spoils or face dissolution. Victory hovered, but at cost. The fight exposed a deeper betrayal. Mrs. Kim's silence, a shield turned weapon. As Jay's team breached back in, securing the intruders for questioning, Minho helped her up, his touch lingering on Ji-Eun's arm, the push-pull resolving into tentative trust. But the retrieved paper's edge caught the light, revealing a final line, coordinates to a tunnel under the river, where the true ledger waited. Who had Mrs. Kim protected with her silence, and would racing there seal their family or drown them in the debt's depths? The penthouse's emergency lights pulsed red, casting erratic shadows across the safe room's walls as the fog from the canisters seeped under the door, a hazy veil that muffled the intruder's retreating coughs. Ji-Eun's grip tightened on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the dimness to illuminate the yellowed paper trembling in Mrs. Kim's hand. The coordinates scrawled at the bottom, 38. 9922-126. 978 pointed to a forgotten service tunnel beneath the Han River, a relic from wartime smuggling routes, now sealed but accessible via maintenance hatches along the Incheon docks. The air still carried the acrid bite of the gas, mingling with the faint, musty scent of the hanbok's silk, as if the fabric itself exhaled secrets long buried. Minho snatched the paper, his eyes scanning the faded ink under the flashlight's glow. "The true ledger," he murmured, voice edged with the rumble of controlled fury. "You hid this to protect us, from the Han alliance turning sour, from the Lees using it as a noose." Mrs. Kim met his gaze, her posture unyielding despite the pallor in her cheeks. "I vowed restitution after their ship sank, but the manifests detailed more. Our shared cuts from black market silks. Sujin discovered the Han leader forged extras, skimming our side. Exposing it would have sparked war. I silenced it for peace, for you all." Ji-Eun's mind reeled, the push of revelation clashing with the pull of loyalty. Her mother's shadow loomed larger now, the eternal bloom not just a talisman, but a warning etched in metal and memory. And the tunnel. If the turncoats have it, they rewrite history, frame the Kangs as thieves, drag everything into the light. Exposure's cost hung heavy, Raids on the docks, frozen assets, the Empire's legit fronts crumbling under prosecutorial scrutiny. Minho folded the paper, tucking it into his pocket, his free hand brushing Ji-Yoon's shoulder, a possessive anchor that she didn't shrug off this time. "We retrieve it. End this before the Lees broadcast the forgeries." Jay burst in from the hallway, rain dripping from his jacket, the perimeter team's radios crackling behind him. "Garage clear. Intruders cuffed, but one's talking. Han Remnant leads the push. They cloned your badge from an old enforcer cache. Convoys ready, but the river's swollen. Tunnels flood easy this time of year. No easy outs. The storm's remnants turned the environment hazardous, water levels rising from upstream dams, natural causes amplifying the rivals' staged diversions." Minho nodded, signaling the move. "Helipad extraction to the docks. Ji-Yoon, you and grandmother take the rear van. Safer route." "No!" she countered, voice firm, the flashlight steady in her fist. Autonomy burned bright, her ethics refusing the sidelines. "I'm in this. The ledger's my mother's truth too." The conflict flickered in his eyes, protectiveness warring with the respect she'd earned in the warehouse scuffle. But he yielded with a curt nod, the bond shifting toward partnership. Mrs. Kim rose, slipping a small key from her handbox hem, access to the tunnel's hatch, hidden for decades. "Then we go as family. The code demands it." The helipad rotor thrummed overhead, whipping the drizzle into mist as they boarded the sleek black chopper, its cabin a cocoon of leather seats and glowing instrument panels. The city blurred below, Seoul's neon veins pulsing through the clouds, the Han a dark serpent coiling toward Incheon. Jay piloted, evading commercial airspace with encrypted transponders, while Minho briefed over headsets. "Hatch at the old pilings. Coordinates match a dry section, but check for tampered grates. No guns unless cornered. Extract the ledger. Negotiate terms on site." Sensory details sharpened the tension. The chopper's vibration humming through Ji-Yoon's bones, the metallic tang of rotor wash, the river's distant roar swelling as they descended. They touched down on a private pad near the docks, the ground slick with mud that sucked at their boots, generators humming faintly against blackout risks. The tunnel entrance yawned from a chain-link fence, rusted hatch pried open by bolt cutters. Recent work, the cuts fresh and jagged. Flashlights pierced the gloom as they descended a ladder, the air shifting to cool. Damp earth laced with the river's brine and faint mildew from pooled water. Footsteps echoed softly on the concrete walkway, the tunnel's walls dripping condensation, sodium emergency lights flickering from jury-rigged batteries, rival setup powered by portable units to avoid detection. Halfway in, voices drifted ahead, low murmurs in the Han dialect, clipped with tension. The group halted at a junction, water ankle-deep now, swirling from a breached bulkhead. Minho signaled silence, peering around the curve. 3 figures huddled over a metal crate, the ledger's bulk visible under a tarp, guarded by a single enforcer with a radio. No heavy armament, just knives and intimidation, logistics favoring quick grabs over sieges. "The vow's ours by blood," one said. Voice echoing off the riveted steel. "Kangs pay double, or the forgeries hit the wires." Ji-Yoon's heart raced, the cold water numbing her legs, but she spotted the tell. The lead man's radio antenna bent, a subtle jam from Jay's pocket device disrupting their backup call. Minho moved first, a shadow slipping forward, tackling the guard with a muffled thud. Arm locked. No blows landed. Just restraint. The others spun, but Mrs. Kim stepped into the light, key glinting. "The vow ends here. Han blood or not, debts die with truth." Her words halted them, the alliance clause's weight freezing the standoff, legacy's code overriding grudge. Ji-Yoon lunged for the crate as chaos erupted. A shove, a splash, the tarp ripping free to reveal the ledger, pages thick with manifests. Zujin's notes, marginalia proving the forgeries. One rival grabbed for it, but Min-ho intercepted. The scuffle, a tangle of limbs in the rising water. No graphic fury, just desperate grapples ending in zip ties. Jae secured the rear, radioing extraction. Tunnel flooding, bulkhead failing, convoy en route, 2 minutes. The environment turned lethal, water surging from a cracked pipe. Natural pressure from the storm amplified by a loosened valve. Human sabotage. They retreated, ledger clutched tight, Mrs. Kim leaning on Ji-yoon's arm, the older woman's breath labored from the chill. Min-ho covered the flank, his presence a shield now laced with trust. As they climbed the ladder, sirens wailed topside, police drawn by the chopper's noise. But Jae's team greased the exit with a staged maintenance drill cover. Victory came at cost. A shallow cut on Min-ho's forearm from a knife graze, exposure rippling as whispers of the raid hit syndicate channels, and the sacrifice of Mrs. Kim's silence, her vow laid bare. Back in the penthouse, dawn breaking over the hand-silvered surface, they burned the forgeries in the hearth, the flames crackling with finality. The true ledger sealed in a new vault, negotiations pending on neutral terms, no blood, just settlements honoring the code. Min-ho turned to Ji-yoon, the scar on his knuckles brushing her hand, a pledge unspoken but felt. You belong nowhere but where you choose. But stay, with us. The bloom's eternal, not as debt, but family. She nodded,